We're on.
All right, so we got an 81-year-old man. He used to be able to read fine print with no glasses. The right eye lost near vision, and the patient noticed the right pupil had dilated. He used to be able to read fine print without glasses and now uses glasses to see. He had cataract surgery over 30 years ago. He had dense vitreous opacities, which he had a vitrectomy in the right eye in 2023, and then the left eye 2 months later, and his vision improved. His VA in the right eye is 2025 without any correction, left eye 2020, pressures are normal. There is no pigment on the cornea. The iris has diffuse transillumination defects near the iris root. The angles have minimum pigment deposition. The IOL in each eye has diffuse brown pigment on the posterior and anterior surface.
I wish I could get pictures of that. I just don't have the capacity. So here's the right eye. Those white spots are artifacts.
So this is a color fundus photo of the right eye. So looking at the nerve, the cup to disc looks normal, borders look nice and sharp. Vessels look normal caliber, macula looks clear, but my attention's drawn to the periphery. Most prominently, I think nasally there, these little pinpoint kind of dark speck regions that kind of go all throughout nasally and along the inferior arcade, and I guess a little bit on the superior arcade there as well.
Yep, and we got some other pictures that show this similar thing. Yeah, here we go. This one's good.
So now we have a color fundus photo of the left eye. Cup to disc looks normal, nerve is pink and sharp. Macula in this case does have kind of that pigmented pinpoint pigment in the macula, and along the vessels here in this case there is these pigmented kind of pinpoint lesions all along the inferior arcade, superior arcade, nasally, and along the nerve as well. The vessels.
Just a lot of little brown dots all over the vessels.
Yeah.
Yep. Advanced. Yep. And there's more.
So, in the autofluorescence here, this is autofluorescence of the right eye. Again, you can just kind of see these now hypo-autofluorescent regions along the nerve and the inferior arcade there. That's the autofluorescence of the left eye. And you can see areas of hypo-autofluorescence corresponding to those little pigmented lesions along the vessel. And then there's an area, a couple areas of hypo-autofluorescence surrounding the nerve and a little bit nasally as well.
Yeah, a little hot spot here. That could be a little neovascular membrane. They're not uncommon in old people. Oops. So here's an OCT.
So here's an OCT of the right eye. I guess it's just below the nerve to kind of look at those hyperpigmented lesions. Looking at the OCT, it looks like they're more confined to the inner retinal layers there. You see some hyperpigmented kind of lesions in the inner retinal layers there.
Yeah, it looks like those little hyperreflective spots in the vitreous, and it looks like they're just collecting on top of the ILM and just sitting there right above the vessels.
So again, this is a OCT of the left eye in this case, and you can see again those little hyperpigmented, I guess, little flecks there on the inner retina on the ILM. And so this is again an OCT of the left eye, more focused on the macula this time. Again, you can see kind of those hyperreflective lesions, I guess, on the ILM.
The hot spot on the autofluorescence is right here.
Okay.
And that's where there's outer retinal atrophy. So that's a window defect. So it's not a mem. It's probably, there probably was fluid there at one point or something.
Okay.
Plus some depth of the retina. You got a little window defect. And then this is another spot in the left eye.
So just more of the same.
That's it.
That's all you get. You have a differential for us, Courtney.
Okay, so any type of like retinal vasculitis or any type of like a rod cone dystrophy, maybe RP, even though it doesn't kind of have those bone spicule pattern, it's along the vessels, or some type of this pigmented atrophy.
Let's see, bone spicules are usually along the vessels, so that's a really good differential. The only thing with that is the OCT. So for dystrophies with bone spicules, you should have your outer retina just toasted. There should be nothing there.
Yeah.
Because the pigment migrates from the RPE along the vessels. But that's a really good differential.
Yeah, it almost just looks like someone sprinkled pigment into the vitreous. And remember, they had those iris root
Iris defects,
illumination defects.
Have you ever seen this read? This is really weird. Yeah, so you got all the retina people haven't seen this. This is the only case like this I've seen. I had to look it up. But it's really cool pictures. All right, so go ahead. You want to discuss it?
Yeah, so my differential, I don't know, posterior pigment dispersion syndrome, aka Cohen syndrome, aka PPDS. Put it straight on the board exam. Retinitis pigmentosa, question mark, lattice degeneration, question mark, just things that have pigment changes along the vessels. Nothing really looks like this.
If it was unilateral, I think I'd be a little freaked out about a possible tumor. I could picture like some goofy melanoma somewhere.
Melanoma
Shedding.
shedding. Yeah. That's
And
a
that
good
was
one.
huge melanoma.
Did you see? Yeah. So and that would, but this is bilateral, so that you wouldn't expect that.
And then Dr. Cohen asked me to speculate on the mechanism. I said, it's likely pigment dispersion in a prior vitrectomized eye, causing an accumulation of the posterior segment in areas where the vitreous remains along the vessels and the nerve that are just stickier. The question is, did this guy have those posterior vitreous opacities that he had the vitrectomies for? Was that big clumps of pigment, or was he just crazy and he wanted his floaters removed? I don't know. Do you know, Dr.
No, I
Cohen?
think it was the pigment, because I don't think that pigment could have accumulated in 6 months. I think this has been going on. So I think his vitreous was thick because of all the pigment in the eye. I just didn't see it before the surgery because of vitreous. His vitreous was remarkable.
And
But
it's
I don't send vitreous.
going only posteriorly and not anteriorly. So,
Well, I think that might be a pseudophakic thing. Pigment dispersion is a phakic thing. So I think a pseudophakic pigment dispersion, like if you look at that paper I sent you. So anyway, go ahead with your thing.
all right, diagnosis and management of Cohen syndrome. No diagnosis or management is suggested by me. If there's evidence of pigment dispersion in the anterior chamber, you could monitor for pigmentary glaucoma. If there's significant pigment in the vitreous, you could probably vitrectomize them, which happened to this gentleman already.
Good. And I wish I could have gotten pictures of the lens. It was really impressive. The only thing I thought was interesting about this case is in bone spicules, the mechanism is supposed to be outer retinal atrophy, and then the retinal vessels end up touching the RPE. Because the vessels, the outer retina is avascular, but the middle retina is not. So what people speculate is that you get outer retinal atrophy, the vessels touch the RPE, and then the pigment travels along the vessel into the retinal vessels and then surrounds them. That's what I've read on bone spicules. This suggests that there's some affinity this is not that. So this suggests there's some weird affinity for pigment in retinal vessels. And I think what you said, your speculation is interesting, that the vitreous there is a vitreous attachment over the vessels. So you wonder if maybe there's something on the vessels that's a little sticky, mostly like flypaper, that it sticks, it grabs them, the vessels. I don't know why this is along the vessels. I thought it'd be, if anybody wants to write this up, I think this would be publishable. Oh, and I sent you a paper. That paper had 3 cases, I think, and it was from 2022 or 2019. You don't remember off the top of your head. I found a paper and I sent it to Alex. And
Yeah.
And it was published, so it was privacy published, but none of them look like this.
I thought your pictures looked way better. I looked at the paper and I was like, eh.
Oh, this is your drive too. Yeah.
And then, you know, the accumulation of the pigment almost looks gravity dependent. It's thicker and more inferiorly. So
So anyway, so that was, it's just a really odd case. I sent it to all my partners. I thought it was really cool. You don't see new stuff very often.
Cohen dispersion syndrome.
It was really cool. Anyway, so that was a really neat case. Thanks for showing that. It's not going to be on the board.